and welcome to Morning Brew with me, Graham Hughes. It is Tuesday, the 2nd of May, 2023. Just to explain, I swapped with Phil. So he did yesterday because I was out of town, and I'm doing today. Thankfully, today I'm not streaming from my mobile phone, so hopefully the quality audio-visual will be a little bit better than it was yesterday. Apologies, and also apologies to the lateness of yesterday. That was my fault, nothing to do with Phil at all. It was just a little bit of one of those disasters where you press go live, and then everything collapses. So yes, anyway, so big hello to everyone in the chat there. We've got Stephanie, we've got One Angry Pagan, we've got Nick and Diff, we've got Asgas saying good morning, everyone. We've got Daniello, we've got Danilo, sorry. We've got Perry, and Councillor Dan Jordan is joining us this morning. Oh, hello, Dan. We've also got Plumduff down there, and Freckle Puny saying hi. Also, few big stories that are broken sort of over the weekend or on the news today. The first one involves Russia and its invasion of Ukraine. Now, US analysts reckon that just since December, over 100,000 Russians have been killed or injured in in Ukraine in this invasion, illegal, immoral, indefensible invasion of Ukraine. And out of that 100,000, which is a truly shocking figure, 20,000 are thought to be dead. That's just since December. And a lot of those casualties happened in the city of Bakhmut, a small city with not much strategic importance, really, when it comes down to it. From what I understand, and I'm not a military analyst, and I'm not going to get into the whole military side of things. I don't know enough about it. I don't feel qualified to opine on that particular subject. But from what I've been assured from various sources is it's not that important a strategic place, but politically, which is where I am interested and where I am possibly qualified, it is very important to Vladimir Putin because they desperately need a win. And one of the more interesting things that have come out of this is half of that number are thought to be part of the Wagner private militia that works with the Russian army on usually covert operations around the world. And I was actually talking about this a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about Sudan, and I said there's some similarities between the Sudanese militia that is now fighting against the Sudanese military in Sudan, in Khartoum, and Wagner. And lo and behold, reports came out over the weekend that Wagner is actually involved in what is happening in Sudan, making the region less stable than it otherwise should be. Those of us in the West who constantly criticize our own governments for interfering in other people's countries, in their elections and their military campaigns and things like that, well worth noting that Russia does this as well. And when we do it, it's wrong. And when Russia does it, it is wrong. So let's just put that down there and say, yeah, UN peacekeepers, I'm all for that. Private militia, no. Indefensible. Anyway, another thing that was flagged on the Guardian website today, big news, is that BP, which changed its name in about 1990 from British Petroleum to Beyond Petroleum. 23 years later, they still haven't gone beyond petroleum because you know what? Petroleum is really, 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 really worthwhile. Like, it makes a lot of money. It's so much money, in fact, that its underlying profit reached $5 billion in the first 3 months of the year, outstripping analysts' forecasts of $4.3 billion. Now, you've got to imagine, like, well, you don't have to imagine, you're living it. We're in a cost of living crisis. Our fuel bills are through the roof. The last couple of months, I've been wearing a beanie for these podcasts because it's so cold in our house and we don't put the heating on because we can't afford it. As simple as that. It's just too expensive. And these companies, it is like they are well and truly taking the mick here. Please, no, just stop it. And yet our government is like, oh, yeah, well, you know, you can't put a windfall tax on these companies that are making outrageous profits in a I mean, war profiteering. This is war profiteering. That's what it is. They're making massive profits during a war. It's war profiteering. I thought that was illegal. Apparently not. It's actually very, very lucrative. Who would have known it? Who would have thought it? Who would have thunked it? There isn't much left of Bakhmut. It's become a symbolic fight. That's absolutely true. There's nothing there left to defend. And to be honest with you, the way that the Russians have been sending wave after wave of troops into Bakhmut, it defies logic. It defies logic. And that's for me. I'm not a military analyst. I'm not going to get into that too much. 100,000, that's madness. The Americans lost 60,000 in a decade of Vietnam. The USSR lost 15,000 in Afghanistan. Yeah. But Franco Puni, is it going to stop them? Is it going to stop Putin? I don't think it will. I think Putin has this absolute ironclad control over the hearts and minds of the Russian people in the way that it defies logic to us until we think, hang on, what about the Tory party and its absolute ironclad grip on the will of the British people? You know, they declare something that they're going to do, and then they say, oh, that's the will of the people. It's what the people, we're delivering on what the people want. They're not. They're living on what they want, what they think will keep them in power forever, which is their plan. They want to stay in power forever. They never, ever want to leave power. That's the Tory party all over. But yeah, we can sneer at the Russians and say, oh, God, they got brainwashed pretty easily. But then maybe we should look in on ourselves and go, oh, hang on, so do we. And we really do. In Russia, the state owns the media. There's no independent media over there anymore. Basically, all the media does is tell everyone that the evil man in charge is great all the time. Like what Fox News did in the US when Bush was Bush, but also Trump was in charge, and what Murdoch owned, Lord Rothermere owned, Barclay Brother owned, Desmond, what's his name? Desmond Morris owned. Or is he the zoologist? I can never. Anyway, what that guy who used to run Razzle and then bought the Express but doesn't own it anymore. That guy, yeah, Richard Desmond. That's it. Desmond Morris is a zoologist. Sorry, live. This is live. This is what happens when we do a live podcast. Sorry. Yeah. So that whole section of the media is run by conservative donors and members, conservative advisors. One of the famous things that Murdoch is supposed to have said about the difference between the EU and the UK is that if he walks into Brussels, everyone ignores him, but if he walks into number 10 Downing Street, everyone has to sit up and pay attention. This is an Australian with American citizenship. Doesn't live here. Just owns a load of our media, and he's a massive conservative. Yeah, so that's difficult. And also, to move to my next point, and I'll come into the comments in a moment. I was hoping to segue off, effortlessly to the point that Geoffrey Hinton, who is one of the guys who developed AI technology, he's the godfather. He's seen as the godfather of AI. I don't really know what that means, but apparently he's quit Google at the age of 75 because he's old. But also because he's warned about the dangers of AI. I think they've hyped this up a little bit to get a little bit clickbaity. Oh my God, the AI monsters are going to take over. But he does make a good point in the article about bad actors like Vladimir Putin. Did you see him in that film? He was awful. Bad actors like Putin using AI to map out strategies for becoming more popular that they might not have thought of had they just used squishy human brains instead. Emotions and caring for people, you see. So once we hand over strategy for government policy to a machine that has no empathy, well, we may as well just keep the Tory party in charge, eh? Anyway, so Wagner had Pegozin threaten Putin, Morty Vicker. He did. What Wagner had? Yeah, he did threaten Putin. He said he was going to move out his troops and send them to Mali. Apparently. Ice cold in Brexit. Ice cold in Brexit. Hocko90 says, how can oil and gas be profitable? BP didn't pay tax in 2021 on its North Sea operations, and they got 35 million in government aid to keep their heads above water. That's mad, isn't it? And the government's last budget, when they were talking about what they wanted to do with oil and gas, and they wanted to drill more oil and gas in the North Sea, and they were going to say it's okay, we're going to offset it because we're going to collect the carbon that's produced. And I still, for the life of me, cannot get my head around this. I know I've said it before, but if someone can explain to me in really simple terms, layman's terms, non-scientific terms, how you can transport the oil and gas from under the sea into someone's car or into someone's kitchen and have them burn that gas, that carbon dioxide producing gas, in their car or in their kitchen or their kitchen. How do you capture that CO2 and put it back under the sea? How does that work? What is the mechanism? I just don't. Do you have a big balloon above your car? Everyone's got a balloon in their car. It captures all the CO2. And you go to the balloon dock, and at the end of the day, you go, here's all my CO2. And they go, okay, cool, we'll take all that CO2. And then we pump it in massive, I don't know, do we put it into a lorry and it gets taken? Do we put it on a train, a gas train, a CO2 train? How does it work? I don't understand. How do they get it back under the... And look, again, I'm not a scientist. Obviously, there is some magic voodoo, and there's an old line about any sufficiently, I think it was Arthur C. Clarke said that any sufficiently advanced technology will seem like magic to primitive people. And I guess I am kind of primitive in this respect, but I just don't get it. How do you take it out of here, transport it hundreds of miles away, burn it over here, and capture that carbon and put it back where you started? I can get it from here to where you burn it. That seems like a one-way process. I don't get where you burn it and you send it back. Don't get it. Unless pipes. Maybe they're going to put in a load of pipes. Every single household in the country has a pipe. CO2 pipe. You plug into the CO2 pipe and it goes back into the sea. At the end of the day, you plug your car into it. You plug your extractor fan into it above your oven. I don't know. Anyway. Greenwashing. That's the term for it. Greenwashing with Graham Hughes. Danilo says, except for The Guardian and the Bylines Times, British media is uniform as the German ones in the 1930s, and that didn't happen by accident. You are absolutely right. Vendetta says, Putin's Tory puppets. V, I cannot disagree with you on that one. Labour must commit to reforming media ownership rules. Owners must live in the UK and be UK citizens or at least UK residents. Yes, absolutely 100%. Couldn't agree with that more. And I know that does sound kind of nativist. No, I am sick and tired of bad actors like Rupert Murdoch. You should have seen him in that film. He was shocking. And like Lord Rothermere, who don't live in the UK. They don't live here. And they send their little mind viruses out to all these people around the country to make them believe in this absolute nonsense every day. Shock, outrage. What should there be outraged about? Oh, the trains are going on strike. Vindictive. They're so vindictive. Do you know what's vindictive, mate? Not letting people go and have their operations. That's vindictive. Not letting you go and stay with your gran while she died during COVID. That's vindictive, especially when you're having coked up orgies at your own house, Boris Johnson. Yeah, that's pretty vindictive. Do you know what's vindictive? Splitting up millions of families where the mum or the dad was an EU citizen, forcing them to either live as a Zoom couple and only see the kids through a computer monitor, or leave the country entirely. To lead the place they know, to lead their parents and their family, their friends, everyone, and go and live in another country. That's vindictive, Daily Mail. That's the Brexit that the Daily Mail told its idiots who read it to do. That's what they said. Oh, it'd be great. And last week we had the incident where Marina Perkis was on the Rees-Mogg show, this horrible Jacob Rees-Mogg, this horrific haunted pencil, and she accused him of lying because he said that there would be cheaper food and cheaper shoes and cheaper clothes, and he said, well, it just hasn't happened yet. That was his attitude. No, go back, roll the tape. He says on day one of Brexit there will be cheaper food and clothing and shoes. This is what he said. We've got it on camera. We have that footage on day one. What are we seeing instead? Bread has gone up by 20%. The cost of bread, the most important bloody staple that you can have, it's gone up by 20%. And this cost of living crisis has been exacerbated so much by Brexit, it is off the freaking charts. And yet, the people who sold it to you will still go on that it was the best thing since sliced bread because it's all they've got left. It's all they've got left. They're like a mother of a serial killer visiting him in jail and saying, "Oh, you're still my little boy. You're still my little boy deep down. Although you did kill all those people and chop them up into bits and put them in the fridge, you're still my little boy." Drop it. On Thursday, if you have any friends who are going to vote Conservative or intend to vote Conservative, please have a word with them. You know, I'm not suggesting you do anything untoward to them. I'm just saying, have a word, please. Because how much do they want to take? How much suffering do they want to impose on the other people of Britain? They watch an advert for a charity that operates in another country, and they feel compassion for the poor people who are suffering in those countries. Is British suffering not real? Are the people using food banks, which has gone up by, just a few packages a year when there was a strike on, I think, in 2010, to over 1 million food parcels? Million every week, 1 million. That is shocking. And then I've come on to my last news story I wanted to talk about briefly. We're having a coronation on Saturday. Most people probably won't know what a coronation is if they're not from Britain, because no other European monarchy has coronations anymore. They don't. We're the only ones. Britain's the only one. Basically, the head of state, who is King Sausage Fingers, the hopefully last, he'll get a blingy beanie put on his head. And they want the British people, us, to pledge our allegiance, saying, and I quote, "May he live forever," like Liam Gallagher in that song. Forgotten its name. Anyway, seriously, what? This is happening in the middle of a cost of living crisis. Now, look, if someone who was very rich spent £100 million on a yacht, I would be annoyed. In the cost of living crisis, I don't think you should spend lots of money on a big yacht like Lady Moan. Michelle Moan, the nemesis of the wonderful Carol Vorderman, who stiffed the UK taxpayer out of 200 million, I think it was, for a company for PPE that didn't work. And she got about 27 million out of the deal and bought herself a yacht and bought her kids a couple of houses in Glasgow. It's all right for some, innit? It's all right for some. Yeah. Anyway, so we're paying for the coronation, and it's going to cost up to £100 million, which is in the cost of living crisis. Oh my God! Like, seriously. Anyway. So, yeah. Got off the subject there a little bit because I was going to talk about the cost of the coronation, but also how much the monarchy is worth right now. Hi, Nico. Nico's just joined the chat. The coronation is going to cost between estimates are 50 million to 100 million. This is going to be paid for by the taxpayer. The king, his personal wealth is estimated by The Guardian at around 1.8 billion, right? And that includes things like the revenue he gets from the Crown estates, which are worth £16.5 billion, but are not really directly, they're kind of indirectly owned by the sovereign, so it's not like they get all the money out of that. But they do get a fair chunk, especially when Buckingham Palace needs renovating. And then you've got the Duchy of Lancaster, which is worth 653 million. I've got it written down on the screen here, which dates back to 1265 AD. And it produced in the most recent financial year, it produced £24 million to the king. So don't you think that where we are right now, with a cost of living crisis, the king might think about paring down the ceremony a little bit? I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily to not have the ceremony. I suppose that's part of having a monarchy. I'd quite like to get rid of the monarchy, but we've got one, so okay, we have to have the ceremony. Does it have to cost so much? Does it have to be so blingy? And does the taxpayer have to pay for it all? And I know that the Tory voters love to pay for stuff that is completely not making any money or even takes their money away. They adored paying £43 million of taxpayers' money to Boris Johnson's garden bridge that wasn't even built. They didn't build. They didn't even do. I don't think they even. I think they did some sketches and made a website. £43 million to the taxpayer charge for an invisible bridge. It's not like Tory voters are someone that you want to say, hey, I want to sell you a bridge to, but they are quite people that would be happy to have a bridge sold to them that was invisible, obviously, because they keep voting Conservative, even after all this mess. But yeah, so maybe Charles could do half the money towards the coronation. Maybe he could donate in kind the 100 million that is being paid for the coronation to a charity, maybe a charitable trust. I don't know. There's lots of things he could do to mitigate it a bit. There's a great quote on the CNN website. They went to Doncaster. They spoke to a woman called Liz Coopey, who works in a church food bank in Doncaster. And she said, I'm not saying the monarchy is a bad thing, because I don't think it is. Obviously, like most people in the UK, royalist. But do you know what? Put in plain English, when the country is on the bones of its arse, it's not a good look. I can't argue with that. Seriously, can't argue with that at all. It's really not a good look. In the last 10 years, we've had at least 2 major royal weddings. We've had 2 major royal jubilees. We've had 2 major royal funerals. And they've all been charged to the taxpayer. They've all been charged to the taxpayer. And to me, I think, I would rather the money at this moment, when we are living through this situation, which I think is worse than the credit crunch. The credit crunch started all this. That triggered the Tories getting in 2010, triggered austerity, which then pushed into Brexit, which then pushed into everything that we're doing, everything that's going on today, including the invasion of Ukraine, which I think Brexit emboldened Putin to interfere in the American election more, get his man Trump in. Imagine now if Trump would won that last election, Ukraine would be over. There would be no more Ukraine. It would just be a province, an oblast of Soviet Russia. I say Soviet because it's very similar in terms of there's one guy in charge and everyone else has to do their bidding or they die. Usually in jail. Okay, so back into the chat. ChatGPT says a lot about Boris. Don't forget the propaganda bots. What? Okay. Graham, you're more handsome than Harrison Ford. Oh, thank you very much, David. I would hope so, because he's like 80 now. But thank you. Frecklebeanie, Marina Perkins was very good at taking on the Gulmog. Very akin to Eddie Mair calling out the oaf Johnson and rightly calling him a nasty piece of work, in reference to the fact that him and his horrible little mate, Darius Guppy, is that his name? Darius Guppy? I mean, for God's sake. What are these people live in a different bloody world anyway, privately educated, of course, like Boris Johnson, old probably schoolmates, I guess, I don't know. And he gave him the address of a journalist to have that journalist beaten up. Darius Guppy subsequently went to jail for something else. So criminal mind associated with our prime minister for a few years during the worst possible time for an idiot to be in charge, or a guy just doesn't care. Boris Johnson doesn't care. I'll tell you a little story that I heard about Boris Johnson. This is very much Boris Johnson. He had to do Zoom meetings during the COVID lockdown, obviously, and he didn't know how to rejoin the meeting when he got kicked out of a meeting, and he couldn't be bothered finding out how to do that. So they had 4 iPads. So if he lost connection on one of them, he could just go to the next one. And the next one. We put a toddler in charge of the country. Wow. Quite impressively stupid thing to do. If you have any friends, do not vote. Get them to go out and vote on... If you have any friends who do not vote, get them to go out and vote on Thursday. Ask them to vote anything but Tory. Those who do not vote Tory the Tories will be terrified. He says using Google's YouTube, laugh. I don't know what that's about. I think there's a guy in here. Descent from Scottish, very now it's a nationalist. Okay. I think there's someone in the chat who's just being a pain in the arse. Anyway, so Vendetta's saying that's conspiracy to Section 20. As I recall, it's been a while. Either 20 or 20 or 18. I don't know what that's on about. Princess Anne saying today that slim down monarchy isn't a good idea. Of course you want, yeah, because she'll be one of the people who will be slimmed down. Remember right at the start of COVID, Johnson didn't attend 5 Cobra meetings. That's from Patrick H. Yes. Scumbag. Nothing wrong with Keith Stalin's neo-Labourism. Oh my God. These people, I mean, they walk amongst us and they vote Conservative. And I mean, there's 2 things going on here. To comment on this chat, you have to subscribe. So thanks for subscribing. And also, the more subscribers we get and the closer we get to actual Labour's YouTube number, which is about 42,000 subscribers, we're on nearly 30,000. The more they'll have to pay attention to us and the more, hopefully, funding we can get. So thanks very much for subscribing. But it's really sad. You know, some people get up at 9:30 in the morning and they go, I'll go online. And what I'll do is I'll just say that I'm a massive Tory online, and that'll be a great thing to do. And it's like, well, do you know what? Why don't you make your own videos talking to the camera, talking to people, and we can say what we think about Conservative voters, such as yourself. It's not going to sound great, to be honest with you. It's not going to sound great, but can we keep the conversation? Can we keep the chat to just what we're talking about? So the coronation and the cost of living crisis and the massive profits that BP have made. What I'm actually talking about. I'd rather have that than ad hominem insults and this idea of everyone's a hypocrite. Look at everyone being a hypocrite because they live in society. And they comment on how society could be made better by getting the Tories out, which is a dream that some of us share, but obviously some of us don't. My racist father-in-law is voting independent because the Tory is Asian. What the hell, Tim? Oh my word, that is insane. One is wounding the other. One is wounding with intent, the other is less. Conspiracy is a class. Is a crime classification. Okay. You can support Labour. Oh God, that's me. Princess Anne about saying the slim down monarchy probably not the best of ideas. I heartily agree. So yeah, and then there's the rest of the stuff that's in the news at the moment, but we are up to 10 o'clock, so I am going to have to get going in a moment. But before I go, I will quickly give you a rundown of what the papers are talking about today. The Tory graph, because it's part of the Tory junta, owned by the Barclay brother. It used to be brothers. It isn't anymore. Sue Gray in Partygate team when Starmer talks begin. So this is the week of the local elections. They're trying to dish some dirt onto the Labour Party. Didn't see that coming a mile away. And showbiz royalty. TV's Anton Deck, top list of stars to attend King's coronation. That's the front cover of the Mirror, which has gone weirdly royalist in the last week, which is just a bit odd. And then we've got ignoring plea for life and limb care, just not on, which is the front cover of the Daily Express. It's the NHS boss hits out at striking nurses because the nurses are the problem. The ones that we were clapping for a few years ago, they're the problem, not the government. And there's a call for top civil servant to go amongst worst crisis. The cabinet secretary backs authority, says a historian. This is from the front cover of the Times, and talking about Simon Case, who should have resigned ages ago because he was the top civil servant during the Partygate, during the cocaine orgies that they had at Number 10, which wasn't fun. And we've also got Home Office to acquire fleet of ships to house asylum seekers. This is from The Guardian. Really good idea, that, putting people on ships, because A, they're not an easy target, and B, they're really cheap to maintain. As anyone who's ever owned a boat, ever owned a boat will attest. So there you go. We've got David Beardyface saying, morning guys. I'm just going through the papers. The Eye says this can't go on. NHS leaders in despair as strike stalemate hits care backlog. It can't go on. The Tory government have to capitulate, and they have to say, hey, this 100 million that we were going to spend on the coronation, maybe we should give that to nurses instead. as a bit of a pay rise, maybe a bonus, I don't know. And then on the Daily Star, Attenborough lined up to talk to the aliens. Okay, on that bombshell, thank you very, very much for watching this morning. Thanks for all the chat, except the Tories. They can go away. Don't like Tories coming on my chat and chatting. Big thanks to Reagan Elite there for sorting that out for me. For some reason, I couldn't do it on my own bloody computer. And it's very difficult to talk and read and try and block people all at the same time. But if you're now blocked, haha, bye. So until tomorrow, when I return for another morning brew, because I've swapped with Phil, so he's not coming back till Thursday. I will say thank you very much for watching. Thank you to all my patrons. If you want to sign up as a patron, head over to patreon.com/Labour Social. There's loads of goodies over there for you. And I'm going to leave you a list of all my wonderful patrons and YouTube members. You can also become a YouTube member, which will grant you access to grant you access to the Discord server, which I'll be going to after the shows tomorrow. I'll probably be there for the whole period between the first show in the morning and Prime Minister's Questions, when we'll be doing a little commentary on there. So yeah, come back for that. If you have any friends who don't know who to vote for on Thursday, who are actually going to go and vote, don't forget you need voter ID. Also head over to stopthetories.vote and you can see tactically who would be the best people to vote for. It might not be Labour. Depends what constituency you are in. It might be Lib Dems, it might be Greens, might not be Labour. But have a look at that, and we are focused. We are hyper focused on getting the Tories out in as many seats across the country as humanly possible, because we need to show the Tories that we do not approve of what they're doing, how they have been running this country into the ground for the last 13 freaking years. Send them a clear message on Thursday. I can't vote because there's no local elections here in Durham. But until next time, I will say thanks for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.